Good evening. Today is the 10th day of November 2016, and our continuing series, Explorations in Savitri. We are still in Book 2, Canto 5, The Godheads of the Little Life. And these next 2 weeks or so are not the easiest to go through, because Sri Aurobindo shows us exactly what man is like at this point. But Mother says wait until the last act. So we will see when we come to the end of this canto how beautifully he resolves everything. Page 163, just after the break on the bottom. This is the ephemeral creature's daily life.
So I suppose one of the many works of the divine is to show us the mirror, and it's not a pleasant work, I'm sure. Even for the divine, it must be not a pleasant thing to do. But the difference is that unlike when as human beings we criticize others, the divine, when he does it, it's an act of love. It's done with an aspiration, with a wish, with an urge or impulsion to help us progress. He shows us the limitations of where we are so that we can get on to something better and higher. Secondly, even as he shows us, he gives us the strength, the power, and the grace to pull us out. Unlike as human beings, when they criticize. Third is that he doesn't fix it for all times. He says that this is so long as these are the conditions,
Yes.
but there is something else which is possible. Again, unlike we human beings who, when we fix a person, we fix him for all times. I have seen people after 30 years, 40 years, oh, that person I know very well, and one is critical, not realizing that people change.
Yeah, they may have changed.
They may have changed and gone far beyond. Imagine if somebody saw Buddha when he was still a young prince, and after 40 years heard about him and what his remarks would have been. So, this is where the divine shows us the mirror. It's an act of love, an act of grace, and it is to pull us out of the state in which we are in. And it's not a very pleasant state, even if we are happy about it. This is the ephemeral creature's daily life. As long as the human animal is Lord, and a dense nether nature screens the soul. For all our polish, the fact is that there is a little animal waiting inside and waiting for its moment to leap and pounce. As long as intellect's outward gazing sight serves earthy interest and creature joys, an incurable littleness pursues his days. So these are the conditions under which we are forever, as if forever, tied down to the littleness of life. One is that we are still driven largely by animal instincts, and there is a dense obscurity of ignorance, and our gaze is turned outward, and we are only seeking satisfaction in earthy joys and little things. So as long as our intellect is only looking outward and taking interest in these things, in the surface play, there is an incurable littleness. By incurable, it is meant that we have to understand the need to come out. Otherwise, even when the divine is there, we want to turn him into a means for serving our earthly interests and these joys and satisfactions. So even when people go to the divine, or what to them represents as the divine, they go seeking the same things. Something for their child, something for themselves, money and house and car, etc., etc.
I was reading today My Little Smile in
Yes.
those letters to Mother.
Yes.
And she says, Mother, you're not giving me enough. Mother says, I'm giving you more than you're asking, but you have to widen
Yes.
to accept it.
So we prefer Tirupati Godhead,
Hmm.
who will, who will give you all the gold in the world, rather than someone who will grant you freedom, liberation from ignorance, transformation. It's not yet on our agenda. And now Sri Aurobindo shows us where it rubs hard. Ever since consciousness was born on earth, life is the same in insect, ape, and man. The difference is that insect eats mud, we eat something else, but the interest is the same. The eyes is still on the food, on the ground. Sri Ramakrishna had a very nice simile to it. He said, many of us are like birds that fly, but like vultures, our eyes are fixed on the little pound of flesh that is on the ground. So even though we fly, our eyes are still there on the pound of flesh on the ground. So this is the unfortunate side. Its stuff unchanged, its way the common route. If new designs, if richer details grow, and thought is added and more tangled cares, if little by little it wears a brighter face, still, even in man, the plot is mean and poor. I remember here, we had Chote Narayan Sharma. I think some of us may have had the joy of hearing him. I had the joy of, moving with him as a friend, though we had difference of 40 years, and a wonderful person
Oh, yes.
with tremendous sense of humor and plenty of inner experiences in his lap. So once, and he was really a free person. When he came to ashram, he asked mother, what work shall I do? And mother said, you are reading and writing on Sri Aurobindo, continue the same. So it was his work to read, write and speak. This was the work given to him.
Yeah.
So once, and he would go somewhere and just stay on like a sadhu, free man inside, though he had a family and everything, and then suddenly move on like that. So once he was staying with a rich man's house and he asked him that, can you write a biography of mine? And Chotnarayan ji was very good as a writer, both in Hindi and English. His Hindi biography of Sri Aurobindo is really one of the best short biographies. And it's a pity, I wish it could be translated in English, but it's difficult to do that. But it's very authentic and very real, and there is a whole story about it. But we need not go into that. It's blessed by the mother, literally. So he said, okay. He had a sense of humor. After another week, he said, so sir, have you written something? He said, yes, I have managed to write a paragraph. Can you read it out to me? Can you share a little bit? He said, yes. So he started, there was a worm who lived in a castle. So, the whole thing was about a worm. He said, what are you writing, sir? He said, I am writing a truth you don't want. You asked me for your biography. You don't want it, I'll stop it. He was very frank and forthright. Sometimes he could be brutally frank. And with such profound knowledge of Upanishads, Vedas, once one of the Mahamandaleshwars told him something about Sri Aurobindo, that, Sri Aurobindo has written so much, but the same point he works again and again. So he's told, the Mahamandaleshwar, he's a big man, he's like a bishop in Christianity. So he tells him, the book you are reading, he was having in front of him Ashtavakra Gita. He said, I can recite you from back and forth every single sloka of this. He said, you want to discuss? Come, we'll discuss. That kind of a man. So there was a worm living in a castle. The plot is the same. Food. 90% of humanity preoccupied with food. Progeny.
Yes.
Its growth. That's the end of the story.
I was traveling with him once, with Lakshmi Narayan.
Yes.
And he spoke on Savitri so beautifully.
Beautiful. Oh, beautiful. So, this is what Sri Aurobindo is revealing to us. The plot is mean and poor, centered around the little ego. Nothing more than that. A gross content prolongs his fallen state. So, content is not always good. There is a content of the tamasic man who is content with what he is, who he is, whatever little he has, and therefore he refuses to progress, refuses to seek more. This is a gross content. The content of the animal who is satisfied with food and doesn't mind be living in a cage forever because he gets his morsel of food. So this gross content, this inertia, his small successes are failures of the soul. Sri Aurobindo speaks of this in one of his letters when he says, do you think that the mother and myself, we could have also, we were searching for flesh pots in Egypt, we could have also become member of parliament and things like that. So you are called upon to sacrifice these things for a greater good. But it's so easy to get the lure and walk away. There was a famous person here, I won't name, who got a big offer from some big place to be the vice chancellor or something, some big position, or in the government of India. And he left his work here and went away. So someone asked Dyuman Bhai. Dyuman Bhai made a very startling reply. He asked Dyuman Bhai that ultimately he will come back, isn't it? He said, well, ultimately yes, but who knows that ultimately may mean many lives. So, this is how his small successes are failures of the soul. His little pleasures punctuate frequent griefs. Hardship and toil are the heavy price he pays for the right to live, and his last wages death. Just to live. So much we struggle. Very often people say, oh, spiritual life is very difficult. So I have seen outside many people here who have come at a young age to the ashram. They don't know what struggle is because mother has kept them with so much love. There is a joke in the ashram that's spoilt by her love. Young children, 18, 19, they don't know what is struggle. They don't know what is difficulty. But since many of us have been outside, so when they tell me that life is spiritual life is difficult, I said, yes, you are saying as if outside life is very easy. Just to make two ends meet, is it easy? Look at a lady who labors from morning till night, spending so much time in the kitchen. At the end of it, the child says, Tata, bye-bye, goes away, and she craves just for a phone call, and she won't get it. And she would be miserable simply because she can't see her child anymore. Look at the man, slogs literally like a donkey, running into this heavy traffic with all this smoke and dust, and comes back tired. And if he gets a cup of tea, he feels blessed. Is this life caught in the grip of more and more and more? Spiritual life may be difficult in the beginning because we are called upon to do things which are not natural and normal. But very soon it becomes so easy. It's like you are gliding in the skies. It's so beautiful. Whereas outside life may look very easy and lucrative in the beginning, but as time passes, it wears off, the shine wears off, and we taste the bitterness below the cup that tasted sweet in the beginning. So this is the fact, and Sri Aurobindo is reminding us, hardship and toil are the heavy price he pays for the right to live, and his last wages, death. That's the... An inertia sunk towards inconscience. Look at this double amplifying it. On one side there is inertia, it's bad enough. But an inertia which is pulling us towards the abyss. There is a great mystic poet, Kabir. He expresses the same sentiment in a different way. He says, I'll say in Hindi, then translate in English. He says, Jagat chabena kal ka, kuch mukh mein, kuch god. When people eat something, they keep, nuts, they keep some in the hand. In India, it's a habit. In the hand, they take in the mouth few and the rest is again in the hand. They take. So he says, Jagat, this world, is food for death, food of death. Some of it is in the hand and some of it is in his mouth. That's the only difference. Last wages, death, hurtling towards death. A puny splendor of creative force is made his spur to fragile human works, which yet outlast their brief creator's breath. Fragile human works. He dreams sometimes of the revels of the gods and sees the Dionysian gesture pass. Revels of the gods, parties of the gods, what it would mean. Great victories won, triumphs over inner battles, over the dasyus. Sometimes he has those moments when he experiences the joy that the gods experience in the heavens. There are moments when he perhaps stands before a landscape and for a moment experiences a joy which is hard to find amidst all the pleasures of the earth. And yet this joy comes and passes away, just a brief
Like
glimpse.
a dream. Yeah.
Dionysian gesture,
Yes.
it's like a gesture. There's a very interesting story about it, about the Amrit Manthan, the great churning of the ocean. So in the churning, basically it's in some subtle world where gods and titans are involved. Human beings are on earth, they are instruments. And finally the vessel comes out. Now as the vessel comes out, one of the Asura picks it up and runs. And the gods notice, oh, there he is running away. So the gods also chase him and a battle ensues. So the scene is very funny that they are both holding the pot and trying to pull. And a drop of that spills over earth. That is where it is believed that the Sangam, where the three rivers meet, the Ganga, Yamuna, Saraswati, in Allahabad, that's the place where the drop of nectar is spilled. Of course, this is very symbolic. The three rivers meeting is the inner state of the right, the left, and the central Kundalini, the nerves meeting together. And when they can meet together, you experience a drop of that bliss. So just that little drop which spills upon us. So Dionysian gesture, what to speak of living in the consciousness of the gods. So he sees sometimes, dreams sometimes, a leonine greatness that would tear his soul if through his failing limbs and fainting heart the sweet and joyful mighty madness swept. It's difficult for man to bear it. That's why the Upanishad declares, Na yamatma balhine, this light, this truth, the self is not to be won by the weak. So very often when people come here, they want to know about the philosophy of Sri Aurobindo, they want to know what is the technique of meditation, etc., etc. So sometimes in that process, somebody tells them to go to the playground. And they're totally confused and lost. What's happening here? Bodybuilding machines. People doing march past. What is all this? Mother gives so much emphasis. Before the supermind was descending, she knew that if man is not ready, he will break down. In Savitri, we have those lines.
Oh, yes.
Man is too weak to bear the infinite's weight. Truth born too soon might break the unprepared earth, might imperfect earth. Imperfect earth. Truth born too soon. Now it is born and we are not ready.
Yes.
This is a very difficult situation. So now all the experiences of life come to make us ready. When we meet with difficulties, challenges, that means divine has chosen to make us ready to receive him in our life. That's why we see that in the life of Pandavas, chosen by the divine to bear that greatness and glory, they had to go through so much pain and suffering. And they went through it gladly. Whereas Duryodhana, who is the villain piece in the Mahabharata, is enjoying life from birth till death. He is a prince. But that's an incurable littleness. So that's where we see the difference. Leonine greatness. It's easy to say that Arjuna was such a fine instrument. Very often people say, it was good for him because Krishna could give him directly the Gita. So the reply is fine. Become like Arjuna means thereby go for 13 years without uttering a word even when you have done nothing wrong. Be banished. Imagine, he had done nothing wrong. None of them had done anything wrong. If anybody did a wrong, it was Yudhishthir and of course the great Shakuni. But they had to suffer. But that made them steel. That made them strong. That taught them humility. And then they became ready to become vessels of a great creative might that would change for 2000 years the very destiny of a nation. So, that leonine greatness that would tear his soul, if through his failing limbs and fainting heart, the sweet and joyful mighty madness swept. Trivial amusements stimulate and waste the energy given to him to grow and be. So whenever, even in the ashram context, when somebody pointed out, Mother, there is so much wastage of money, wastage of this. So Mother once reminded my child, you speak about wastage of money, you don't see how much consciousness is wasted? How much I am pouring. You were, I think, mentioning that.
Yes.
How much I am pouring.
Yes.
And still, you waste it. You chatter away. You forget the purpose for which you are here. In the playground, Mother is in her interview room. And this is not about some people. It's the human condition. They took her for granted. She is giving interview inside. And people are chatting, gossiping. Even they had because those days there were no television, etc. So there was like a press club. Somebody would hear the news on a single radio, would note it, come there and give the news, and everybody would suddenly gather there to hear the news. So much so that once Mother had to give a very strong message about the harm done by incontinence of speech and the dangers of gossip. She goes on to say that when you gossip about somebody, criticize the person with harsh words, and especially when you use abusive words, then it is like committing spiritual suicide. She used these words. When you speak of others, not just negatively, but using language which is very coarse and very abusive, it's so dangerous. And this with Mother's physical presence. So the little pleasures in which we lose ourselves, we forget. His little hour is spent in little things. Little hour. He's reminding us, 80 years, 85 years, little hour in little things. A brief companionship with many jars, not even human beings, jars, vessels filled with all kinds of things, little jars, a little love and jealousy and hate, a touch of friendship and indifferent crowds draw his heart plan on life's diminutive map. When Dilip Kumar Roy asked him that people here say that, friendship, etc., are not allowed in the ashram. Love, friendship, etc. Sri Aurobindo says, well, love, friendship are indispensable notes in the harmony towards which we aspire. But precisely because we hold them sacred and do not want to see them broken by the play of the human ego and desire, that we want it to be placed on a solid footing, not on the basis of ego. Yes. Otherwise, what is it? Little love, jealousy, hate, and it ends. So that's what we don't want. We want it on a solid footing of truth and light and beauty. If something great awakes, too frail his pitch to reveal its zenith tension of delight. There is that line, no? Even the sages and saints ponder in unsubstantial light.
Yes.
The hearts that love are given one brief hour to love.
Yeah.
This is the human state, because it becomes too much
Yes.
to bear that continuous ascent. His thought to eternize its ephemeral soar. Art's brilliant gleam is a pastime for his eyes. He is not able to see what is behind the appearance. A thrill that smites the nerves is music's spell. And this we understand very well. Even art, pastime for his eyes. Many people wonder why are cinema shown in the ashram, and this was asked to mother. She says there is a way to watch it where just a vital gets involved. But there is another way to watch it.
Yes.
To become an observant. And then you learn a lot about the world play, things which help us in the yogi growth.
A dispassionate observer.
Dispassionate, yes, observer.
Yes.
Where the mind takes interest, not the way the vital engages with it. So.
And yet, Mother said, Manoj told me this. He wanted to show Shakespeare's works.
Yes.
Mother said, not for my children.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Too violent.
Yeah. So, of course, there is a choice. It's not that any movie is shown. So, that's what it's not like just going to a film as a pastime. Let's kill time. It's not that. So, there can be a deeper sense in it. Amidst his harassed toil and welter of cares, beautifully summarizing our life. For all the gloss and paint, harassed life, toil and welter of cares, pressed by the labor of his crowding thoughts, he draws sometimes around his aching brow nature's calm mighty hands to heal his life pain. Time to time we say, let's go to Switzerland. Let's go to Nainital for a few days. Let's have respite. Why don't we do something to get permanent respite? This is the tragedy of human life. For a few days, nature's...
And Sri Aurobindo hyphenates life and pain.
Life and pain.
To make it one word.
One word.
Life pain.
Yes. He is saved by her silence from his rack of self, huddled together, all kinds of things, pell-mell. For some time we go, crowded thoughts. But even that we carry, because now we have the mobile generation. Who will leave us free, even in Himalayas? We'll be harassed by messages, calls, WhatsApp. Nothing, no way, you can't be free. I don't know whether Mount Everest has a tower or not, but I'm sure they will build one soon, technology, satellite. So you can't be free. Freedom has to be searched inside. And that's what Mother says at one place. That was the reason why monasteries were built, and there were places far off where people withdrew for some time in a retreat. That's why time to time it's necessary to go to such places. And then she says, but it is not the permanent solution. She ponders that we could have made a ashram in the Himalayas, but it would not have been a solution. So while in the midst of life, you have to discover that peace and joy. That is a great challenge.
Yeah.
But that's a big toil. For human average of us, even a few moments of respite is enough, for which we have to withdraw into nature. In a tranquil beauty is his purest bliss, because in nature he can sense little bit of that presence of the divine. Otherwise, the moment mind comes, with mind comes ego, with the ego comes wailing, and it's so difficult to feel divine in the midst of human beings, even though human beings are the highest of creation so far. But remove human beings and you can feel much more the joy of nature. It's a paradox. So that's why this is the great fall which Bible speaks of. The intrusion of the mind with its search for knowledge. But she says it's a curve we have to pass through to evolve further. A new life dawns, he looks out from vistas wide. The Spirit's breath moves him, but soon retires. His strength was not made to hold that puissant guest. And that is the reason why, though sadhana can be done outside, there are plenty of disciples of Sri Aurobindo outside. But the mother and Sri Aurobindo always wanted even them to come here from time to time and spend some time. And that used to be a substantial amount of time. It was not 2 days, 3 days. People would come earlier, they would even join the group activities for a month or 2 months, they would be here, sometimes for 3 months, so that they could receive and feel that strength, that beauty, that grace, and then go back into the world with this background. This used to be the process. Of course, there are some who can do it under any circumstance, but that's a rare being. All dulls down to convention and routine. This is a fact. People often say that we feel it when we are near the samadhi in the ashram, but when we go out, well, we are back to square one. They do not know that even within the ashram, many people go through the same process. When they come in the beginning, they feel that rush of psychic opening. Mother describes it beautifully. It used to be given as a note to everyone who joined the ashram. 1947, Mother wrote a note and advice to newcomers. Page 47, Collected Works of Mother, Volume 12. Must read. Why? Because Center of Education was starting. A lot of people were coming from outside to teach and for that purposes, not really for going on the path of yoga. So she says that when people come here in the beginning, they are full of that psychic is in the front. So everything appears wonderful. When they taste dining room food, they say, it is nectar. When they meet people, everybody is a saint. Then if they stay on or they begin to live here, after a while they start saying, dining room food, every day we have to eat the same thing. When is that special day? Has somebody died that we will get some sweets? So, stuff like that. So whenever there is something special, today is a special day, let's go. Because, and the same people who appeared as saints start looking crooks. And, that person, he poses to be doing sadhana here for so many years. Look at him. He can't get over this little habit. So Mother says the reason. The reason is not that people have changed. The reason is you have changed. You have fell back from your psychic opening back to your old nature. Then she gives the remedy. What is the remedy? Not that you want to change others and become a crusader. Everybody must change. I'll compel everybody to do sadhana. She says, bring back your psychic poise. That is the remedy. Because if you bring that, that is the solution. So very soon, when the spirit breath moves us, we fall back to convention and routine. All dulls down to convention and routine. Or a fierce excitement brings him vivid joys. His days are tinged with the red hue of strife, and lust's hot glare and passion's crimson stain. Battle and murder are his tribal game. So one carries the same old nature. Either he falls back into a tamasic routine, or the same rajasic issues, fights, conflicts. Of course, here you can't do these extreme things, you'll be out. But outside world is full of that. The whole...
And Sri Aurobindo's words of red hue and
Yes,
crimson.
Crimson stain.
These colors.
Yeah, these colors come to make his dull life a little more exciting. That's the only thing. Time has he none to turn his eyes within and look for his lost self and his dead soul. Dead to him, his outer nature. Soul doesn't die. but to his outer being, dead soul. So every day we must find some time to retire into the silence, to retreat within and get in touch with our soul. This is a everyday practice. It's very helpful. Time has he none to turn his eyes within and look for his lost self and his dead soul. It's an irony, you see, that people don't do it and give all kinds of justifications. One of them is, oh, this is too difficult for us. So they start by saying, oh, going within this meditation and all is very difficult. So they say it at 25, they say it at 35, they say it at 45, they say it at 55. If at 25 they said, oh, it's very difficult, let me try it, then by 35 it would have been a very easy thing. But they just don't do it. It's difficult. It's an a priori. Like many people don't read Sri Aurobindo, it's difficult. Yes, it's difficult. Everything worthwhile in life is difficult. Earning 2 square meals is difficult, but we do it. But if we start it today, it will become easy as we proceed. So we must spend some time to turn within, to get in touch with our souls, however difficult it may be. His motion on 2 short and axis wheels, he cannot soar but creeps on his long road. Or if impatient of the trudge of time, he would make a splendid haste on fate's slow road. His heart that runs soon pants and tires and sings, or he walks ever on and finds no end. So sometimes we swing between vairagya and a very impatient striving, or we fall into despair and down the dumps. This Sri Aurobindo speaks of this in the context of one of the disciples. When he is driven by vairagya, that mood, and he says, oh, he would start wearing ochre robe, have a mala, etc., etc. We all know.
Yes.
And then later on, he has the opposite state. Then he would write letters to Sri Aurobindo with full of despair, despondency. This is no good. He gets filled with doubts. So someone asked Sri Aurobindo, what's happening to him? He is so close to you. He is such a brilliant fellow. He has so much bhakti. What is happening to him? Sri Aurobindo says, bhakti, he swings between these 2 states. I have been telling him that you walk on steady feet, on ground level. This is not a yoga where you take vairagya today and after 7 days you are back into an indulgent life. Walk with 2 feet steadily on the ground. So, not to swing. But this is how Rajas takes us. We decide, from today on, I am going to only meditate. You do it. After 2 days, you are back into, oh, nothing has happened after 3 days of meditation. Impatient haste. Or he walks ever on and finds no end. Hardly a few can climb to greater life. All tunes to a low scale and conscious pitch. Sri Aurobindo is reminding us of the difficulty. Unlike the advertisement given by the corporate sector, come, join us, brilliant career, etc., etc. Lot of money, everything. So you join. You don't know what you are in for. And I'm sure people who have worked, they know very well. Of course, TCS excluded. There are. But most companies, they squeeze the oil out of you.
Yeah.
And you wonder after a few years whether all this money was really worth it, at what expense. But you are caught then in a vicious cycle. So, unlike that, Sri Aurobindo is reminding us, look, yoga is difficult. There is no yoga made easy like French without tears, or vice versa. So he says that it's difficult. Are you ready to walk? So that we know what it is. So, all tunes to a low scale and conscious pitch. His knowledge dwells in the house of ignorance. Look at this wonderful thing. Inwardly you are aware, all is the divine grace can do everything. But in the house of ignorance, where nothing we see can bear a testimony to this truth that you realized inside. Because it's a house of ignorance. Someone went to Ma Anandamai and sent his card, and the card contained many degrees, BA, MA. Some people even they should write higher secondary because has many big card, MA, PhD, D.Lit, double PhD, all kinds of things. Manager, assistant manager, CEO. So her secretary did not, is so many big introduction what to read. So he simply told Anandamayi Ma, Mother, a very learned man, Vidwan, has come to see you. And Anandamayi Ma says, oh, learned man. In this world of ignorance, where is such a learned man? अविद्या की नगरी में विद्वान कहाँ से आ गया? House of ignorance. Where is that learned man? Show me one.
I had experiences in horticulture where there were 15 different things after a man's name.
Okay.
And the funniest one was FRHS.
Okay.
Friend of the Royal Horticultural Society.
That's it. And we take so much pride in all this. This is sheer ignorance. Agreed that we need it for the moment till we have a greater knowledge, but we should always strive towards greater knowledge and not confuse one for the other. So, house of ignorance. His force nears not even once the omnipotent. Rare are his visits of heavenly ecstasy. The bliss which sleeps in things and tries to wake breaks out in him in a small joy of life. Wakes up in the morning, so beautiful, this is lovely, looks at the sunrise, people go for the sunrise sometimes in Pondicherry, and if, so nice, so beautiful. Then they are looking for grace, but which grace? Grace tea stall, which is a adda, where they can go, everyone picks up tea and discusses everything in the world, from Donald Trump to black money and everything, whatever is happening. So all that sunrise gone with a cup of tea. At the end, walk like the same old person. So this is where Sri Aurobindo is reminding us, rare are his visits. The bliss breaks out in him in a small joy of life. This scanty grace is his persistent stay. Sunrise may happen or not happen, but the tea stall is permanent. You may not go for the sunrise. After a few days it's routine, but you have fixed a time. We will have tea, adda, and you will go. So this small joy of life. And it lightens the burden of his many ills. We forget the difficulties for a while and reconciles him to his little world. This is the tragedy. Reconciles him. There is some joy after all. Life is not too bad. There are friends, there are movies, there are sessions, there is the card game, and that's it. He is satisfied with his common, average kind, tomorrow's hopes, and his old rounds of thought, his old familiar interests and desires. Reminds me of some of these military people, great people. They fought wars and done wonderful things. But what happens to life after that? Once you are out of that, that sphere, most of them will join a club which is exclusive club. So they will sit together over a glass of beer or wine and over a game of bridge. And they are discussing what happened in 71. What happened when they were posted here? What happened when they were posted there? And then now what in the future? Oh, where is your son, by the way, these days? Oh, he's in Massachusetts. He's studying engineering. Wow, his wife. So this is the discussion going on. Because this is what ultimately boils down to. So this smallness of human life, this incurable littleness, and these are exceptional people. Yes. We are not talking of those who are, whose life remains at an average pitch. His old familiar, tomorrow's hopes, he is satisfied with his common average kind. Tomorrow's hopes, and his old rounds of thought. Tomorrow's hopes, son's marriage, grandchild's admission, tomorrow's hopes,
And old realms
all
of thought.
familiar interests
Again, again.
and desires. So we'll stop here
Yeah.
and continue on Monday.